Here's Rineman in the Morning, on demand from 102.1 and 105.3, The Shark.
As a kid playing the drums, Sheila E. has always been a hero of mine. When she was in the area for a show, she was nice enough to come on and chat, tell a crazy story about a big release party in Boston, and even offer some advice to my daughter. Here's the one and only Sheila E. Hey, Sheila, it's such an honor to have you here. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
When did you first play New England? Do you remember the first time you came here to the region to perform?
I do not.
A lot of people don't.
I'm celebrating 50 years this year in the business, so I have no idea.
Well, congratulations. What's your favorite memory? Do you have anything in terms of the Boston area or New England that stands out? Any old clubs that you loved playing back in the day?
Actually, to be honest, one of the times after I became Sheila E., I remember this one thing that, well, first of all, I used to eat clam chowder. It was the only place to really eat great clam chowder.
Oh.
However, when I became Sheila E., the first time we did we would sign, our LPs, the albums, or we would do in-store record store signing with the band. And we were driving in this limo, the whole band, all of us together, and we were pulling up towards, it was by the water, I think, and it was a record store. And all these people were out, and we're going, what's happening? What happened? Did somebody get hurt? Blah, blah, blah. And they're like, no, there were 2,000 people in line for us. People showed up for us to sign their LPs. It was insane. And so we got out of the car. They had to make a way. They, tried to make a little way for us to get through from the car into the store. And I remember I had on this scarf and my earrings, and people were trying to grab my clothes, and the security guys were pushing people away, and I'm like, no, don't hurt them. But I almost got choked because the scarf around my neck, this girl was trying to yank it off of me, and I'm like, okay, we can't do that. So we were told after that not to wear scarves, be careful, or we have to come the back way. It was crazy. That was something like the experience of the glamorous life. That was our intro into Boston when I became Sheila E.
I was just going to say, it's not just like the song. And also, I guess it's like Steven Tyler, man, just taking a risk wearing all those scarves all the time. It's just dangerous.
That. It is sometimes.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, Boston's a fairly crowded city. It's very small, but it's got a lot of people, lots of people living in apartments. And there's some places up here like that, in Portland and Portsmouth, stuff like that. What would you say to anyone who plays the drums or wants to get into the drums, but they don't want to wake up their entire apartment building practicing?
I would say there are these drums that you can get. They're electronical drums from Roland that are really good. They sound like real drums. You can have different sounding drums, and there are some percussion on there as well, percussion instruments. But it's really cool because you wear headphones and no one can hear you. And you can still play.
Who got you into drumming? Any drummers that really inspired you when you were coming up?
As far as, drums, I started playing congas. That was my first instrument. Watching my dad play percussion. He's still a percussionist, and he's still touring. So the legendary Pete Escovedo, I always have to say his name. And and I learned by watching my dad play every day. He would practice LPs, and then they would have jam sessions in the home. And then also once in a while he would have his band rehearse in the living room. So there was always live music in the house. As far as playing drums, the first person I saw as far as playing drums on television I thought was pretty cool was Karen Carpenter.
Yes.
Because her and her brother had a television show, and a lot of people really have forgotten that she was an incredible drummer. But the drummers in my dad's band were very influential. And also, when we finally, I think I was like 15, we met Billy Cobham, and then that changed everything.
Gotcha. Well, I saw you a couple years ago, and this really made me laugh. You were in Fred Armisen's special on Netflix, Stand Up for Drummers. It's just what it sounds like. It's jokes meant for drummers. Now, I played the drums as a kid. I loved it. What is your favorite funny thing about drumming that non-drummers may not get?
Try to change the snare when it busts. That's really funny.
Yeah.
Because you've got to stand up and let someone come and change the snare. And the kick drum was worse because the pedal went through the kick drum. And we started trying to double up on the kick drum. I don't know why I was putting a hole through the kick drum. I guess I was playing too hard. But that was very interesting. And And back in that day when I went through the kick drum, I had my left kick drum as well because they didn't have double kick pedals there. So I'd have to switch and play with my left foot.
I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. This is just advice. I need help with something. I have a 5.5-year-old daughter named Sadie. And she was talking to one of her friends who happened to be a boy recently. And this boy said to her, "Girls don't play the drums." So what would the great Sheila E. tell Sadie Rineman to the idea that girls can't drum?
Sadie, that is not true. Sadie, you can play drums if you want to. Any little girl can play drums. And if you want to play, you can be whatever you want to be. Have fun with it. And there's no such thing as just boys playing drums. Girls can play drums too. I'm a witness to that.
Amen. And one of the role models.
Yeah.
Now I'm a millennial myself, so I always knew you as Sheila E., the great Sheila E. It wasn't until later that I found out you played with and were quite close to Prince. Mm-hmm. Something that was quite divisive a few years ago, and feel free to plead the fifth on this, Sheila. It was in Minneapolis. Justin Timberlake did the halftime show, and the big image of Prince came up while he was performing. Some people liked it, some people didn't. What did you think when you saw that performance?
I was there in the building. I mean, the whole thing was a little challenging at first because I had heard through the grapevine that initially he was going to do a hologram, and I reached out and on social media and said, please don't do a hologram because Prince thought it was very demonic if that anyone tried to do that. And they got a hold of it, and then Justin ended up calling me because it was trending what I had said, and I was just being honest, just saying, I mean, it was no big. I was in another city performing, and I just said, hey, I hope no one's doing a hologram because he's not going to like it. And so Justin reached out, and he said I would never do that, but everything got straightened out, and so I guess they decided to do that. But from what I heard, I think they were supposed to do it. So it's not that I'm going to plead the fifth because I did say what I said.
Right.
Being in the hometown, I mean, I think if Prince was there, he probably would have maybe been a part of it. I don't know, even though he had done the best Super Bowl ever, you can't beat what he had done. But
sure.
I think just in he had just passed and then turning the whole city purple in the sense that, that's what they were saying. I mean, everyone was paying homage to him. And I think they should have used some of the music or some of the musicians. I think that would have just been the right thing to do.
Yeah, I agree. And I used to write for Jimmy Fallon, so I remember Justin coming on that night, and I remember him coming into the room. And it was kind of, I didn't know how to react. I was like, hey, it's good to see you here.
Well, no one said anything about it. They were trying not to say anything about it. I think they just tried to leave it alone, and I understand that. So,
are there any Sheila E. songs, any songs that you're really proud of that people should go find, people should go check out, that if they heard, they go, oh, wow, that's a fantastic Sheila E. song that's kind of a deep cut or something like that?
There's a lot of music. I have many albums. I think if you just start doing a little research and checking out what we're doing, that'd be cool. And we have, because we're playing Boston with my band called the E Train. Yep. I started the band, the E Train, in the 90s. And I did it because I wanted to play drums and be the drummer in my own band. When I do the regular Sheila E. shows, I'm playing timbales, and I sometimes don't get to play drums, and I'm running around singing and playing. So the E Train is based on me playing drums and us playing different genres of music. So we have a new CD out that's called Hella Funky, and you can only purchase the CD at the shows. It's not even going to be out till possibly March, and I might not even stream it. So,
wow.
And we're saying that because people don't know about streaming, and I end up saying it at the shows that just drop a little knowledge in that streaming we don't make any money, and so we ask for your support to purchase the CDs. Maybe some people don't even have CD players. The point is that we don't get paid. We get for 100,000 streams, we get $352.
Wow.
And for 1 million streams, we get $3,500, and that's the split. And that's if we have 100%, and it's being split amongst 6 or 7 people. So, it's a thing. Like, we're not making any money on streaming. So if you purchase the CDs, this money goes directly to pay these amazing musicians that are on the record. Most of the shows have been sold out wherever we're going, and that says good things about us. And we're selling out of the merchandise, the CDs, everything. We had to do a reorder. I had to bring more CDs. I went home for a day to go pick them up.
I'm Stephen Page, and if I had a million Rinemans, they'd all be in the morning.
When I was in the grade 8, I was watching Late Night with Conan O'Brien on New Year's Eve and saw a band singing about my favorite band, the Beach Boys. Turns out it was a song called Brian Wilson by a group from Canada named Barenaked Ladies. They soon became my other favorite band, and I was lucky over the past few years to strike up a friendship with their co-founder and former lead singer, Stephen Page. With BNL, I saw him at Suffolk Downs Great Woods, the Fleet Center, the Cumberland County Civic Center, the Orpheum, the Verizon Wireless Arena, the Lowell Memorial Auditorium, the Agganis Arena, and with the Boston Pops at Symphony Hall. And just last year, I got to see the Stephen Page Trio here in New Hampshire. They put on a great show. Hope you enjoy our conversation. It's been 25 years since my guest and the band he co-founded, Barenaked Ladies, were greeted by 80,000 New Englanders at an album release concert. He returns to Boston with the Stephen Page Trio Tuesday night at the City Winery. Welcome to Rineman in the Morning, Stephen Page. Mr. Page, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you, John?
I'm doing okay. It's so unusual to be talking to you on the radio because I normally see you on my computer doing concerts from your basement. For people who may not know, can you tell me a little bit about the Stephen Page Live from Home series?
Yeah, I started doing these live from home shows like a lot of people did in the spring of 2020. I started doing it at the end of April in 2020, and I had so many people coming out to these things that I thought, well, I can't just do one. I'll do another and another and another. I started doing them. I was doing them over Zoom, which was so much more satisfying than doing them over Facebook or Instagram or whatever else, because I could see the audience as well as them being able to see me, and they can see each other. And there's the whole chat thing on the side as well. So it kind of just developed this incredible community. So I still do them when I'm around on a Saturday. I'll do them, and so I think we've just did our 103rd episode last week.
It's so cool because it's the same thing. Like if my daughter's taking a nap or something, or it's rainy, it's so cool to be like, it's 4:45. But that's right, there's a Stephen Page concert I can just go to.
Well, like a younger Stephen Page would have been, I think would have insisted that everybody have all eyes on me all the time.
Yeah.
I really love the fact that people can put this on and engage with it however they want. They can be really present. They can be cooking dinner while they're watching it. They can have it on and off in the background. So I see people on their Zoom call, like in their Zoom window, bombing down the highway or sitting at the beach or at their kid's soccer game or whatever else.
Yeah, it's so cool, and you do a great thing. You always usually close with Brian Wilson, and you kind of go around to everybody on their different cameras, and you see everybody drumming along or playing their guitars or whatever. So it's really cool.
Exactly. It's been a lifesaver for me, for sure.
In addition to being an amazing singer and songwriter, you describe yourself as a big foodie. What are some of your favorite restaurants to visit when you're up here in New England?
Well, where you guys where you are there in New Hampshire, some of the best fried seafood anyone will ever have anywhere. If we're driving anywhere along the coast, we always have to make a little detour to get some whatever, like an entire platter of amazing fried seafood.
Well, I got to give you a recommendation. There's a place called the Beach Plum. It's in Northampton, New Hampshire, and if you got to hit them up. But I also remember you guys singing. You did an ad lib at a show once, a place in Manchester, the Red Arrow Diner. Do you remember the Red Arrow Diner? And
I do.
They had some wieners and beans that you guys were very fond of. So
that's right. I think for us, that was always just the fact that you go anywhere. That's a food that you would only imagine having in your house.
Yep.
And it's like when mom is exasperated, and that's all there is wieners and beans. And it's fun. As a kid, you're like, that's a great food, but it's just, you never expect to see it in a restaurant. I remember one time with Barenaked Ladies, we were rehearsing. We had a rehearsal space in Toronto. And we decided we wanted wieners and beans for lunch. And so our crew went out and we got like a giant steam tray, like a giant tray, sheet pan thing full of wieners and beans. And maybe I've never laughed that hard in my life and that long. So it's still, the idea of Wieners and Beans brings me such great joy.
It's just fun to say, too. Like, It's just, anything like that.
The guitar solo in the middle of 1 week, the end of it, every time when I was in the band, I would go up to Kevin Hearn as he's playing the guitar solo, and I'd sing, "Oh, baby, I love you like wieners and beans." That was like right before the Chickadee China comes in.
Dude,
so when I think of wieners and beans, that's what I think of.
Dude, that was something that you just reminded me I needed to ask you, and now I know the answer. I'd always notice you guys say something to each other. I go, I wonder what that is. But that's what it is, the wieners and beans.
I love you like wieners and beans.
Did you do that during the Junos performance when you guys got back?
I sure did.
Oh, my gosh. Did you go nuts? It was just so funny.
I think he just smiled.
Yeah, well, for Kevin, that's a standing ovation. So it's pretty good. Well, speaking of those guys, we're coming up on a big anniversary. 25 years ago, Barenaked Ladies released Stunt, and you gave a massive historic release concert in downtown Boston. Is it true you originally planned to just sign like a few CDs at like a comic store?
Yeah, so it was supposed to be. It was run by Newbury Comics, and that was, in those days, in-store performances and signings were kind of de rigueur when you released a record. You'd go and set up, as in release week, you'd go to different record shops around the country, and you'd play a few songs, and then you'd sit behind a table and sign autographs. And, a good one would have several hundred people would come and line up, and it could be, you could be signing for an hour or something afterwards. And that's what initially it was supposed to be. But we realized, we had become fairly big in the Boston area, and we thought, well, I guess it was proposed to us, why don't you do it outdoors? It'll still be sponsored by Newbury Comics, but we'll do it outdoors at City Hall Plaza. But we hadn't understood what the scope of that was going to be. Like we did, I guess it was the day the album came out, and we did, I think, the Today Show in New York City in the morning, and then got on the tour bus and drove up to Boston. And as we drove up, the traffic was, insane, as it often is, but it was like we just couldn't even get there. And we're saying, what is holding up the traffic here? And they said, you are. And when we got there, there were like, I don't know, 65,000 people or something waiting to see us. And we had our little acoustic in-store set up with a little tiny PA, expecting maybe a couple thousand people would show up. And it was, whatever, thousands upon thousands, people up in the parking structure and on the rooftops and in every window. And we stayed till late that night, signed every last autograph that was there. I've never signed for that long.
I have the exact number. 80,000 people came to that concert.
That is incredible.
Isn't that just insane? For perspective, in LaGuardia Airport in 1964, 5,000 people showed up to see the Beatles. So you know what that means, Steve? You guys are officially better than the Beatles, I think is what
we are. We are. See, but that's the thing. Then the Beatles will now stage Barenaked Ladies album burning, ceremonial album burnings, because we've said we're bigger than the Beatles.
Yeah, don't be my Yoko Ono. Yeah, no. Well, talk me through that though, because what is that like when you're in a bus and you're trying to break through in the States still? You've had, I think, The Old Apartment was your first big hit here. What is your guttural feeling when you go, oh my God, we thought this was going to be a couple thousand? It's 80,000 people.
I know it is it's shocking and exciting, and I was so great. Like you look back and you're grateful to have people around you, your bandmates and your crew and your record company people who are like on board for it. Everybody is just as kind of proud of the moment, and then you want to make it as good and as memorable as possible for all those people who showed up. That's kind of for me, that was always like the first thing in my mind is, God, I hope this is like enough for them, because they've all come out here, and you want people to feel like they've not wasted their time and that they've actually been part of something special. But I think we were always good at showing the audience how grateful we were, and are, and so you just kind of, and how absurd the whole thing was. Like we never wanted to take it for granted. I think sometimes I think I didn't spend enough time enjoying being in the moment, enjoying it, because I was looking at the next thing down the road.
Sure.
But really, when I look back now, I think we did a pretty good job of enjoying those moments and seeing how special they were, thankfully.
You're almost like a Boston band. It's like, but the New England as a region took you guys on, but, New England's sort of this cynical, grouchy area. Why do you think that we fell in love with five guys who sing about craft dinner,
It's a funny thing, I felt like when we first started to take off in Boston, I don't think we fully understood the nature of the area. I think we understood the grit and kind of slightly, like you said, grouchy quality, but also we were, when we first started playing there, we were kids in our young 20s. And of course, with all the colleges around, there's just a million places to play. I think what was shocking was when it went beyond it, because college kids leave. When they're done, they're out of there quite often. And the fact that we kind of translated to actual New Englanders was like, that was the big shift for us, kind of in the mid 90s. And that was like when we started to connect with the audience and felt like we had in-jokes with them.
Oh, sure.
That was the thing, I think, was like people knew they could come back and see a different show than what they'd seen before, and that they could kind of be in on the joke. And I think that was one thing we were always conscious of in the band, was that there were lots of in-jokes.
Oh, yeah.
The difference between like an in-joke that is like within the band or within those the most in the know is that it becomes an elitist thing. And for us, it was always like everybody is welcome to be part of this, whether it's something completely absurd or one memory of, whatever, pointing at some guy in the audience or whatever else, bringing somebody on stage, for example. These things can be kind of running gags that we can have with the audience. It's not at their expense, but it's with them. And I think that really connected with people in the Boston area. For
sure. I mean, to this day, if you just say Uncle Elwin or Bird Poop at a Barenaked Ladies concert or a Stephen Page concert, everyone right away goes, I know what that is. But there's a song on Stunt called When You Dream. It's about all the things your then infant son, I believe, could dream while he's sleeping. But now when I watch these concerts, your son pops up from time to time and performs with you. Does that ever stop being surreal as a father that, oh my gosh, he's playing with me now?
It's barely surreal. It's just like amazing. I just have to stop myself from weeping all the time. I love it. Like I have my kids will come and play with me whenever they can. I think my middle kid Ben is going to come and play with me at my next live from home show on the whatever that is, the 13th. And it's just like, for me, it's just the greatest thing. I think Ben was actually out selling merch for me on my last tour up in Canada, and then came out on stage and played piano for us for a bunch of songs. It was like, what a blast. It's like, I never insisted that we have a family band. I didn't want to kind of create that atmosphere of expectation. So when they just say they want to do it, the fact that I even know the words to some of the songs blows my mind. Totally. And they're just such amazing. I learned so much from them as musicians. They're such, brilliant and creative people.
Yeah.
And I know Dad going back and asking for tips.
And I got to tell you, I have a 6-year-old daughter, Sadie, and he watched your holiday concert last December. That was very special for her. They said, there's Steve right there. I think you took a request for us. And it's so funny because, she came along just a few years ago, so she knows sort of the modern BNL sort of stuff, but her favorite song, Brian Wilson. That's the first one she ever always wants to hear. So, but your new album is Excelsior. And so say some people are just skimming through and they like to go for the singles. What are some cool songs people should check out first from Excelsior?
Well, I think if you want to go for what sounds like the most classic old school Stephen Page style, then I think you got to jump right into the golden age of Doubling Down, which is kind of a up-tempo pop number that laments how cruel we can be to each other online, basically. But then the stuff I'm really extra proud of is, there's a kind of a suite of songs. The first 7 songs, it's as I call it, it's a grower, not a shower. It's the kind of thing where you listen to that first time through and you go, this is a little mellow.
Sure.
It's really kind of a headphones record. Like I tried to make something that is the kind of record I like to listen to get really kind of immersed in. And, it could be some kind of heavy or trippy topics about things like grief and exploring the universe and these kinds of, like, they're not the traditional Stephen Page kinds of topics, but I like really pushing myself to do that. So if you want to start from the top, it really takes you on a journey, almost like imagine it's a little musical unto itself, and then the last 4 songs are kind of the thank you for sticking through this. Here's some here's some traditional pop structure stuff.
Your solo stuff's been amazing, and you've had so many great songs. I'll just a couple of them that people can just check out because we're a songs society right now, as it were. But Indecision, The Work at Hand, I love that one. Isolation, you did Isolation.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was the best song during the pandemic, where it was just brilliant. Stephen Page, where just all the lyrics were topical and smart, and it got wonderful feedback. Do you ever hear from any of the guys from BNL? Do they ever send you a quick text or an email and say, hey, man, we caught your song and good stuff? Or is it kind of just like, hey, we go stay in our lanes right now?
It's been like more in the stay in your lanes way for the most part. Mm-hmm. But like Kevin's the best at it. Kevin will actually usually when I put a new record out, he'll say, congratulations on the new record.
Yeah.
He'll send me a text. But Ed actually with the last couple albums has sent me a nice little compliment or whatever else. When I did the song, the Canada Loves You Back song for Ryan Reynolds, he sent me a text about that. Always, very, very complimentary, and that's a nice thing. When there's enough water under the bridge that we can do that is awesome.
Well, unless Ed just wants to meet Ryan Reynolds. I mean, let's be honest, that could also be.
I'm sure he's met him. I know he's met him before.
Well, let me ask you the other way. When they put out new stuff, do you ever give it a listen? Do you ever say, see what these guys are up to?
I got to admit, I don't really that much. I mean, some of the stuff I just hear because it's on the radio or whatever. Mm-hmm. But it was tough leaving that situation. So for a long time, it was like I didn't want to hear it. It hurt. It kind of felt like, I don't know, watching your ex with their new boyfriend or something.
Yeah.
But and also because that first single, Without Me, whether or not it felt like it was kind of at me.
Yeah.
So when you're already a paranoid person, it wasn't a great experience.
You've described it as a divorce, and as a big fan, my parents were together. They stayed together throughout their whole marriage, 40-something years, but that was like my one sort of musical child of divorce thing, because it did. The first couple albums from both of you in different ways, I was kind of like, stop fighting, guys. That's kind of like, come on, man, everyone can get along. So that's so nice to hear.
Well, because I went through an actual divorce.
Yeah, me too.
Around the same time, there was I had 2 divorces in as many years. And it also helped me remember, raised 3 amazing kids with my ex, and I have a lot of respect for her, and I'm thankful for what we were able to do together. I have we're never going to get back together.
Yes.
And we've both moved on into things that we're probably much happier doing, and we're still proud of and connected to our kids. And I feel exactly the same way with BNL.
Gotcha. Yeah. And, I got to say that you've been an inspiration to me on a personal note, because I left a TV job that I was at for 9 years. And then shortly thereafter, same thing, went through a divorce. And so I've taken your lead in a lot of areas, and you're a great advocate for mental health awareness. And it seems like more and more, sadly, though, even though we're supposedly, quote, done with this pandemic, people are struggling more than ever, it seems. So let me just ask you, it's maybe a tough question, but what's just one thing people can do when they wake up so that getting out of bed in the morning is just a little bit easier?
That's a really good question because, you're right. I think some of the long-term effects are still showing themselves. And for me, as a kind of a mental health advocate, mm-hmm. I find it really hard to take care of myself because even though I've never said, hey, I'm fixed, people kind of expect you once you stand up and say, here's my story. They kind of expect you to stay fixed, and there's not a lot of room for a bad patch. Mm-hmm. And so I've decided to, take care of myself, put my money where my mouth is. I'm back seeing a therapist, which is something I haven't done in quite some time. And it's it just restructures how you live your life and how you see yourself. And for me, one of the things is knowing that I'm taking care of myself gets me out of bed. But sometimes you need medication to get you out of bed. Mm-hmm. Talk to your doctor. Talk to, not just Dr. Google.
Yes.
Although they can be helpful too. But they often send me into a spiral. But, talk to your doctor. Sometimes, for me, I'm not on medication right now, but I'm on and off, in different times, because if I can't get out of bed, sometimes you need that nudge. But the other thing for me, just on a more simple level, don't touch your phone till you're out of bed.
Oh, that's a great idea.
It's pretty easy to reach over and grab your phone before you get out of bed, and that can just either like delay your day start or send you into a dark spiral.
You're playing the City Winery in Boston on Tuesday evening, and what can fans expect to hear when they go?
Well, it's Stephen Page Trio, so it's myself and Craig Northey from the band The Odds on guitar and Kevin Fox on cello, and we will do a survey, a full career survey. So I always think of these shows as like catching up with old friends. So we do some of the new stuff to show you where I'm at, and it still has kind of that. There's lots of goofing around and occasionally made up songs on stage and all that kind of nonsense, and kind of go through the whole solo catalog, as well as I would say the show's probably about half old BNL songs, hits, and deep cuts.
One last question, and this is another weird hypothetical, but you guys have talked about how big Stunt was, and let's just go to a different universe. Let's play sci-fi a little bit. What do you think would have happened in an alternate universe? Say 1 week didn't take off the way it did. Like, do you ever think about that, or do you just say, you know what, that's another one of those things I'm going to not let myself worry about?
Well, you know what, I had never considered the band not existing or not existing with me in it. Like until I wasn't in the band anymore, I couldn't picture the band, and I couldn't picture my life without the band. And that was really hard on me. It took a lot to kind of like rebuild my own self-image. When Andy Cregan left our band in 1995 after our second album, like I couldn't imagine the band without him. And then we had our biggest success and a much longer period of time without him. Like things do change, and they tend to change for the better, even if it's not the way it was when you first encountered it. I suspect we would have kept going because we had a fan base of people who were really into the band, and we were playing places that were a couple thousand people everywhere. We probably would have kept on that circuit, I think, for quite some time. I think once our kids were older and as the music business changed, I don't know if we could have afforded to continue to do it anymore. But I really don't know.
Thank you to Stephen Page. Thank you to Sheila E. And thank you for listening to Rineman in the Morning on demand, full interviews.